Hi, welcome back to Transform to One's channel. We are a faith-based organization whose vision is to foster transformational change through Christ-centered initiatives. One way in which we do this is by hosting our annual Navigating Trauma workshop series in person here in Jamaica. As we prepare for our upcoming workshop, which is themed Managing Grief, it will take place on November 1st. We've opened up a space on YouTube for persons who've experienced losses to share their journeys with us. We've chosen to do this to bring awareness to the realness of grief as real people experience it, and also to assist our listeners who've also experienced loss, just to help them to realize that they aren't alone and to share just how different our journeys can be. And that's okay, and in fact, it's pretty normal. While doing this, we also realized that it helped our guests to positively process their losses too. For this, we are grateful. Over the next few weeks, our guests will answer questions to give us some insight into what their journey was like. We want to thank each and every guest for taking the time to share with us and add value to our lives as they give us a piece of them through their sharing. Today's question is, having now experienced the loss, what have you been doing to process that it actually happened? Here are the responses of our guests.
Probably this is the first time I'm really processing the loss. I often think about my father. Some of the ways that we are similar. I hardly find ways that we are different. And sometimes the things which are similar concern me, to be honest. Because I realize that we both tend to hold things in as opposed to sharing pain with others. We'd rather deal with it than allow someone else to help us carry some of the things that we're going through, just to save them the agony. And it's something that kind of annoyed me about my father, but I look in the mirror, I see a lot of that in myself. So seeing, what the parts of him that still live in and through me, I guess that's one way I deal with it. And as a believer in Christ, I don't believe in people speaking to you beyond the grave. But when I do dream about my father, the man I remember who was always wise, even though he may have known every word in the dictionary, he chose to use the simplest language all the time. Sometimes when I'm dreaming and I'm dreaming about him, he's always looking to him for advice, or him being in a moment sharing an experience with me. Something that maybe I've never experienced before. So I think the best of my father is what has been with me and what I subconsciously focus on. So, yeah.
So the losses occurred through miscarriage, but at the same time, like I mentioned, I was losing my relationship in the midst of all of that. And then ultimately having lost those two things, losing myself to the loss, and I guess I also lost touch with God. So losing that relationship with God was a lot of losses. Now that I think about it, but in the end, all things I believed ended up working together, and I see now why certain things had to happen that way. But in the moment, you couldn't tell me that all of it is going to work out, right? But that's how the losses occurred. So when I found out that I lost the twins, my first response, like I shared, was, all right, cool, because for me, in the face of adversity and discomfort, I somehow remain calm and then process after. So I make sure everybody's all right. So even in going through that, getting to my gynae at the time, doing the surgery a few days later, I was more concerned about everybody else's emotions and feelings and their process of going through, because they were expecting too, right? That excitement. And I continued living, showing up in the different spaces. Purpose started to unfold in 2019, which is around the same time what I had gone through in 2017 really hit me. Like, really, really, really hit me, because I was showing up on TV, showing up on different interviews, sharing my story, only because God was like, it's time to share. Otherwise, I would not have shared anything, right? Sharing, starting a non-profit organization. I was showing up. Yeah, I was showing up. And then in 2019, somebody said to me, Happy Mother's Day. Of course, I would have been hearing Happy Mother's Day from that time till that time. But something about that day really struck me, and it crippled me to the point where I was thinking about cutting my tubes so I couldn't have kids. Because I was angry, because I was in pain, because I was upset. And this is long after, right? To the point where I ended up in a relationship that was satisfying this dysfunction, this anger, because the person didn't want any kids. So, right? And of course, God being who He is, came in and decided that this is not for me. And after kicking and screaming, agreed. And it forced me to now make the decision to go through healing and deliverance. It made me make the decision to go through therapy. It made me strengthen my relationship with God. And then, having gone through all of that, God sent community. Yeah. And so now I am fully walking in purpose. I no longer want to cut my tubes. I have been restored to health, happiness, joy, love. Like, I'm expecting, especially because God showed me that I was going to give birth, not just to purpose, but also whatever I'd lost, He was going to give it back tenfold. And so because of that, I'm excited. All the love that was lost through that loss got restored through relationship, through healing, through intentional work. And so now I'm more excited than ever to build a family, to have children, and yeah.
What have I been doing to actually process that the loss has happened? I'm not sure I even know how to answer that. I have been just moving on with life. I know as it relates to my job, it's been a lot of going over things to see, why I should have probably seen it coming, where it came from, why it happened, and just trying to understand the events leading up to that moment. And also, the process for me was a lot of introspection and just realizing that even though I lost the job, I gained something, and what I gained was some peace. What I gained was just the ability to spend time to learn more about me, what was going on inside me, what was happening, what the job was contributing or not contributing to, in terms of my mental health, my physical health. I don't think that I was able to see what it was doing to me, what was happening, and just the toll it was taking, like I said, on my body. In terms of the deaths, especially my aunt, I really just went through the motions. I don't know that I did anything other than just allow time and God to just, I'm gonna say, heal, and just take me through. I remember specifically not being able to look at my aunt
like in the casket, or even like when we visit like the funeral home after she passed. And even when I'd rewatch the video of the funeral, I couldn't look at her face. I would always like, block the screen out or whatever. And I think it was maybe 2 years or so ago that I was just at this place where I was ready, and I was like, yeah, I need to watch it and I need to look at her. And it was, I don't know, I just felt okay, because one, it didn't really look like her, and I don't even know if it has anything to do with physically looking or seeing her, but maybe something psychological or emotional that needed to happen. But again, I had to wait until I was at that place. So I think the processing is just listening to your body, your spirit, and just moving accordingly. Yeah.
So as we all know, 2020 was COVID, the height of COVID, and we were still having restrictions, which made even the process of him being in the hospital a little different. Luckily for us, the hospital staff was very understanding, and there were times when they allowed us to be in there with him, meaning more than one of us. And it almost felt like he was waiting for all of us to be together, because I was in the room, and then my mom came and my cousin came, and then that's when he really started to like deteriorate, and we lost him shortly after that. Right after dealing with everything, I kind of had to step up as it relates to like, phone calls, dealing with people, going out to the burial ground. And because of COVID, that also formed what the funeral would look like. We couldn't have like services, so it was at the burial ground. We had to invite select persons, which was also hard because everybody wants to be there. This was a sudden loss, and when it comes to things like that, my family is very close, so that was also very hard. Of course, we had people on by Zoom, but it's never the same. So that also affected how I dealt with the loss right after. The fact that I was in go mode, I don't think I really processed a lot of it, to be honest, until the following year. And to be honest, I didn't deal with it. I couldn't believe, I couldn't understand. And so I didn't want to face it. I didn't want to try to live without my dad. It always felt like my father was the silent constant in my life. He's not a very talkative person, but he is the same and has been the same. So that loss made me feel very unfamiliar with the world without my dad. And while we expect that we'll have to bury our parents, I think the suddenness of everything really threw it off, and I wasn't able to deal with it. Eventually, over time, with a couple sessions of therapy, I realized that this was no way to live. And as corny as it sounds, my dad would not want me to be suffering every day, day in, day out, unhappy. And it was just a day-by-day process of accepting that while he's not here physically, I am fortunate that, I had the years that I did have with him. And that also helped me to move forward.
No, I really don't know. I just think it's the grace of God, honestly. I don't know. I don't know. When persons see me, they ask me, I don't have any magical answers. I don't know. I just take it one day at a time. I know that I was in a rebellion. Maybe I was angry because there are things that I did that I know that I would not have done. For example, 3 tattoos in 1 year. I hated that. The nose piercing. So I think I was rebelling I don't know how. I'm not sure I've processed that. So let's leave that alone.
The tragedy of that is had to call his mom, had to call other friends. Just breaking that news as a young man for me was just a lot to deal with. And there is no manual, there's nothing that says, hey, this is how you treat with the death of a friend. For weeks, I felt numb. For weeks, I felt some kind of survivor's guilt or remorse, saying things to myself like, what if I got less injuries or I got more injuries? He would have probably been alive. Because I only got a couple of scars on my back while he was just mangled. In the case of my father, as sudden as it was, I was initially angry when I heard about his death. So it played out like this. He got some susumba, green peas looking type of fruit or vegetable. And he decided to cook that on a Thursday evening. That would have been the 10th of April. So he served himself some, served mommy some, and they had the dinner, went to bed. Friday morning, they woke up with stroke-like symptoms, can't move the side of your body, face droopy, slurred speech, that sort of thing. So the advice from a doctor was to take them to the hospital and see, what's going on. Nobody suspected or expected anything beyond what they thought in their minds, which was not that he was going to die shortly. Anyways, he progressively got worse throughout the day. So did mommy, meaning that his blood pressure was getting low and low and low, or their blood pressures were getting low and low. Friday night, his got so low so they couldn't resuscitate him, they couldn't bring it back up to a point where they could give him medication or anything like that. So he succumbed to the food poisoning that occurred from the cooking of the susumba. And I felt anger that he didn't have to make that choice in food where it led to this. Again, you don't know these things, but you're thinking about them afterwards and you're just saying all kind of stuff. So that was an issue for me where I was angry with him. We managed, and I say we, I mean as the family, my brother and my sister, we managed as best as we could. We was consistently calling each other, dealing with that. So with respect to the marriage, I was young, I was naive, I was expectant, I wasn't, and probably still I'm not the greatest communicator, meaning expressing my feelings, my thoughts. And that just doesn't work well in any relationship. That would have led to me making mistakes such as cheating, continuous lying, not being a real man, if you want to just bring it down to that. And that would have continued for years. So I lost a lot of time. I lost a lot of connectivity. I lost myself, really, when you think about it. There were times where I was just disillusioned with what am I to do? How am I going about doing things? There was a lot of separation outside of just being outside of the home, but just within yourself, you're not sure, you don't have any proper guidance, you're hearing this, you're hearing that, and by that I mean just things that are not supportive of how do you recover, how do you fix, how do you solve. I had to go to therapy just to figure out a lot of things within myself. So out of that destruction, I got some growth, I got some development. I know for a fact that even in grieving it then, I became a better person going through that. But it was still challenging to accept certain things about yourself, to know that you can be your own worst enemy. That's something that I had to deal with for years. Number 4, which is just the loss of time. I would not have been the most honest of persons. Just would I tell a lie for no reason, or maybe for a specific reason, it don't matter. I wouldn't have been forthcoming and honest with a bunch of things. And when the deception was found out by whichever party, it just stagnated so many things. It revealed so many things that weren't true. It laid waste the work that you would have done, because it now became, is this really real? Is this who you are? Can you be trusted? And I have to deal with that. I still have to deal with that to this day. Just that loss of time, that loss of belief in me as a person, that loss of trust, that sometimes it's difficult to build back, if at all. It takes a while. There are setbacks, all of which could have been avoided if from day one I would have been honest upfront. So I've been dealing with that, trying to just manage all that time that effectively I would have wasted, all those resources, all those falsified supports that I would have constructed to present an image of this is what it is, but really it isn't. That's tough to deal with again, because you have to look at yourself and say, ugh, that's horrible. And then you have to deal with the fallout. And then you have to start again. So that whole loss of time, yeah, it's just wasteful as it is hurtful. Okay, so having experienced these losses, what am I doing to process them? General management therein. I've gone to therapy, as I mentioned before. I am still in the process of doing that. I do a lot of reading, or I attempt to do a lot of reading, meaning self-help books speaking to the creation of boundaries, the telling yourself the truth. One of the books actually called Learning to Tell Myself the Truth. Seeking out Christ, that has been critical to my to being here, even standing up and doing this now. I became a Christian December last year, and I know without a doubt that change, that shift would have facilitated me managing those things that happened before I was a Christian and those that happened afterwards. Just seeking out God, listening to His word, understanding what you're going through, management through His grace is what has been supporting me at this time. It's not easy. You still have your moments of weakness where you rely on yourself. So for instance, there are days at work where I'll eat unhealthy because that's my comfort, you know. So you still have your setbacks, but the management of it is reaching out, having a support system. I have a very good friend who very tough on me on these things, and I need that. I do need that. So having a support system, therapy, reading, and of course, ultimate provider and savior, Jesus Christ. You can't do it without that.
Right, Jesus, I'm going to show. No, Sean, plug it up, let me see what the button them say. This game mad me. And I never carry my other light because
My name is Peanut Butter and Jelly Sandwich, and I like to eat food.